What comes after smartphones? How will it integrate into the future of your health? Will AI doctors replace real doctors? Does 5G cause coronavirus? Let's find out. So in the last video, I talked about how products are getting turned into services. Physical objects are being dematerialized into computer code. So CDs and DVDs have turned into Spotify and Netflix. So that's going to continue with our phones. Your phone is a product, and the service it provides is being able to communicate and connect to the internet. So we'll gradually phase out needing a physical phone, and all the services it provides will be reduced down to as little physical material as possible. So Elon Musk's Neuralink are developing brain-machine interfaces that will allow humans to connect to computers, and he even talks about how humans will be able to communicate with each other without even speaking. So that's a long way away and not straight after smartphones. What is going to be straight after smartphones are things like smart glasses. So they'll be easier to use than normal phones because we won't have to keep going to a screen to be able to do stuff. So they'll work by augmented reality, which is a layer on top of the real world, like Pokemon Go. There'll be voice activated components which will allow us to trigger commands and then see the results without having to pick up a phone and look at it. Some of you may remember that smart glasses existed with Google Glass back in 2013, but it failed for a few reasons. There was no option to provide long enough battery life to power something continually without needing a large clunky battery. One challenge of glasses, accessories and clothing in general is how cool people think it looks. If it doesn't appear fashionable, then it won't be accepted. So in the future, with a few redesigns, smart glasses may be accepted as normal. The same way normal glasses were weird 200 years ago, but are now seen as normal. These smart glasses won't replace phones everywhere straight away. They'll likely appear in work first, because if it's proven to improve your productivity, then every workplace will want to get them for their staff. And also the tasks that they'll be used for in the beginning will be for things like working with data, rather than going outside and looking around and it telling you what things are. So it's possible that they'll find mainstream adoption the same way mobile phones did, where they first appeared in work, but because people found them useful in their personal lives, they brought them to use at home. So another thing that smart glasses will be able to do is monitor us and give us data about our own behaviour and health. Using tech to measure ourselves is known as the quantified self. So quantified comes from quantitative, which means turning things into numbers, whereas the opposite is qualitative, which just means your opinion. So the quantified self is turning our health and behaviour into numbers so we can better improve our health, memory, productivity and performance. So this won't be just smart glasses, but will include a whole range of other wearables. So they already exist with things like the Fitbit and Aura rings, which I've had for the last year. So this tracks my sleep mainly, but also other things like my temperature, heart rate and activity levels. So it's kind of useful right now because it gives me personalised data about myself, but it will become way more useful in the future when cheap AI comes in and it will be able to give me personalised actions to go along with the personalised data. So for example, in terms of exercise, it measures my activity levels with things like how many steps I took, how much I moved around, but what it doesn't do is give me the actions in terms of what's the best time of the day to exercise, how long I should exercise for, based on my body type, my previous activity levels and recovery, and last night's sleep. So a commonly spoken about problem with sharing all this data is privacy. So the trade-off you'll need to decide is the more transparent you are, i.e. the more data that you share, the more you'll get the benefit of a personalised product or service, which is customised specifically to you. Whereas if you want to remain private, then you'll have to accept the generic product. What's been seen in the past is when people are given free choice, they predominantly choose personalization over privacy. So I think this is because of a few reasons. One is that when something first comes out, there's suspicions around how data will be used, but the more people use it, the more it seems acceptable for everyone else to use. And also it was like the Wild West for data. There's no laws around regulating its use, so more laws will be passed in order to protect us, like GDPR. Also, solutions are being worked on like differential privacy or federated learning, which are both forms of encryption that stop people from looking at whole fields of data and understanding who individual people are. Also in the future, I think there'll be major benefits to personalized services to a point where they'll be able to improve our lifespan, rather than now where it's just things like personalized ads. So to make this all happen, we have all the data right now, but what we don't have is cheap AI and fast internet through things like 5G. So I saw a lot of stuff about people talking about how radio waves from 5G cause coronavirus. Here's why it doesn't. Every physical thing on the planet emits radiation, from chairs to bananas. Even yourself, humans emit radiation. You're bathed in radiation all the time. All radiation is on a spectrum, so what's important is the frequency and wavelength which determines where the radiation is on a spectrum. If it's short wavelength or high frequency, it's known as ionizing radiation, which can damage our DNA, so this is anything from ultraviolet and beyond. That's why sunbeds cause skin cancer, because UV light can damage our DNA. 5G works through radio waves which are nowhere near the spectrum that's been observed to cause DNA damage, and even your phone isn't close. I remember this scare story that rumbled me when I was a kid where they showed two mobile phones cooking an egg. But it's a hoax because mobile phones don't emit ionizing radiation. You could argue that phones fry our brains with apps that sap our attention spans, but radio waves don't physically damage our brain. I can understand the fears around tech because I don't understand how any tech works. It's like magic, and like Elon says, if technology is magic, then people don't know what to believe. So 5G is going to be key for the quantified self, but it will be useful for a whole range of other things, from drones to self-driving cars to teleremote surgery, which is where a surgeon from one country performs an operation on someone in a different country. That's one example of how healthcare is going to be radically different. So in the future, we're going to have better healthcare than the richest person receives right now, the same way right now we have better healthcare than the richest person did 30 years ago. So another example is how you communicate with your doctor. Right now, we go to see a doctor maybe like once a year, if that. And at that appointment, they collect data from you using their tools like stethoscopes or thermometers. But this is just one data point from one observation on one day. So it's very inefficient and not representative of your health. So for example, your cholesterol might be high because of what you ate the previous night, but your doctor will put you on a statin tablet for the rest of your life when it might have just come down naturally. So the vision of the future is that we'll be able to take these measurements ourselves and send them over to the doctor without needing to go in person. So the same way earlier I spoke about physical items being dematerialized into code, doctors' tools like stethoscopes and thermometers will be available to us using our phones, wearables and smart appliances in our homes. When cheap AI becomes available, bathrooms are envisioned to become wellness centres where devices can measure all our health. So all of these measurements and health data will be sent to AI doctors because they're proven to be better than human doctors at identifying diseases. Plus they don't sleep, they can be contacted at any time and have no biases towards anyone. But what AI doctors won't do is fully replace human doctors. Because AI may be better at diagnosing disease, but what it won't be better than humans at is being able to have the emotional intelligence in talking to people. So the model that we'll use in the future is something called centaurs, which are humans and AI working in combination. So I'm a pharmacist and I worked on the front line across loads of hospitals in London, and I see how doctors use Google to help them. So what AI doctors will do is replace Google with a more accurate and reliable tool. So there will be places where it's just AI doctors, but they'll exist in isolated areas where people have trouble getting hold of a human doctor, because at the end of the day, an AI doctor is better than no doctor. So it's going to revolutionize healthcare across the world, and the social and economic impacts are going to be huge. So on one hand, doctors will be able to see more people. In the UK, there's a 10-minute limit on doctor's appointments, which they feel is too short. So instead of everyone coming in, doctors will be able to get more time back by deciding who needs to just send their measurements, who they can have a video or telephone chat with, and who needs to come in person. But because people will be able to speak to doctors from the comfort of their own home, will it mean that more people will book appointments and it will actually become more of a burden for doctors? And things like video appointments, they may be quicker and more convenient, but will the lack of human contact mean that people will have a harder time opening up or understanding information that the doctor's telling them? And also there's people that will go to the doctor for one thing, but in person the doctor picks up on body language, which shows that the issue might be bigger than what they came in for. And also with customized services in general, would you want to give more data in return for a more personalized service? I'm interested to know what you think, so let me know in the comments. This is my second video where I talk about the future, so check out my first one if you want to know how robots, AI and software will integrate with humanity in the future. I got some of the ideas mentioned here from Kevin Kelly's YouTube channel, so I'm gonna put a link to that in the description. Appreciate it if you like the video, and if you can think of someone that might enjoy this, please feel free to share it with them. Peace.